Hello, everybody, and look at that stream of people running into this meeting on this holiday season. How nice to see y'all. We are going to just kind of do a little dance here for a couple of minutes while we are waiting for um, the waiting room to get emptied out and for people to get here. We'll probably start in just a couple of minutes. But while we're waiting, if you want to put in the chat feature who you are or where you're from or happy holidays or anything you'd like to say, please do that and introduce yourself. We will be starting here in just a couple of more minutes. And this is being recorded. So if you would like to turn off your camera or rename yourself for your own security or privacy, feel free to do that. Otherwise, just want to remind you that we are going to record this session. And while we're doing it, let's say hello to some of these people. Hey, Terry Wilder, how are you? Hey, Jennifer from Portland. All of you folks streaming in like this. Gosh, you're coming in so quick. We're going to give it just a couple of minutes and we'll be right back to you to start our program. Greetings, everybody. Hello, and on behalf of the Reunion Project, I want to welcome all of you who are still wandering in from our waiting room to this event. I'm going to give you just another minute to say hello in the chat feature and introduce yourself. We have people in this meeting from New York and Brooklyn to Seattle and Los Angeles. It is great to see people from all over the country joining us for this second Reunion Project Town Hall event. I'm going to move it along and get us started here. My name is Mark S. King. I am a writer and a long-term survivor of 37 years. And it is definitely my honor, my privilege, really, to be hosting this second Reunion Project Town Hall with some really special guests. I see that y'all are still saying hello in the chat feature, and that's great. You continue doing that. Hello, Tim in Palm Springs. How nice to see you. I want to tell you first about the Reunion Project. Here's a slide so you can see what it's all about. And here's the bottom line. The Reunion Project is by, for, and about long-term survivors of HIV. We kind of define what a long-term survivor is, how you define what a long-term survivor is. But the fact is that the Reunion Project has been working since 2015 to bring together those people who are long-term survivors, to coordinate, to support, to educate one another. One of the biggest things the Reunion Project has done is to host these two-day events in cities all over the country for long-term survivors, locally branded events that the Reunion Project has been able to host. You can find out more about the Reunion Project by going to reunionproject.net and look at the website and find out about events or how you might be able to get more involved. Very, very proud to be a supporter of the Reunion Project and to be involved in this event here today. Hi, everybody. Hi, Mark. Hi, Blaine. Let's move it along, Heather, to next slide. We want to thank our sponsors for this. There's quite a few people that make this possible, not the least of which are the volunteers and staff people at the Reunion Project itself, and that includes Jeff Berry, the newly installed first executive director of the Reunion Project. So we want to congratulate Jeff on that if you haven't already heard. But we also have sponsors: Gilead Sciences, Vive Healthcare, Broadway Cares, Equity Fights AIDS, and Avita Pharmacy. They are making this event and a lot of the work of Reunion Project possible. So we absolutely want to thank them. Here's some housekeeping before we get started. First of all, as I mentioned earlier, the event will be recorded. So if we do some sort of group picture or during the Q&A, for instance, the participants might show up on the screen. So if for your own privacy or security, you'd rather not be shown, then you can turn off your camera. You can rename yourself on Zoom. So do it any way you like to. If that's your preference, you're welcome to do that. Closed captioning is available. So if you would like to use closed captioning, if you look at the bottom of your screen, you'll see an option for that. Or if you look at the little hamburger, that's what it's called, the ... I know this because my husband is a techie. That's called a hamburger. If you look at the hamburger down there by More and select that, you will see an option for closed captioning. And so if that would be helpful for you, that's how you do it. You're going to use the chat feature to ask questions as we go along. Toward the end of both of our big speakers today, there will be a Q&A section. And so you might want to wait until we start that Q&A section to post your question so it doesn't get lost in other chatter, but that's how we're going to keep track of that. And Heather, our very capable assistant here today, will probably be keeping track of those questions as well. Hi, Heather. Thank you for doing this. If you wish to remain anonymous, turn off your video. I mentioned that. And then there will be an evaluation about this event. So please let us know how we are doing, how the Reunion Project is doing in this event. It's a very simple evaluation. Heather's going to give you a link to that, and you'll see that link later on. She'll probably bring it up from time to time, and that's great. So next. This is our event called Moving Forward, Stories of Resilience. We have two terrific speakers to introduce to you today. One is Nelson Virgil. I think I called him legendary in my piece about the event, and he absolutely qualifies for that particular moniker. And you know, speaking of legendary, there's also people like Mark Misrock, who has been working with the Working Positive Coalition, and not only that, been just working with helping people living with HIV get back to work or make those choices and navigate all of that very confusing stuff about work and benefits for a very long time. So the Reunion Project is really lucky that we have both of these speakers that are going to be here for you today to listen to and hopefully generate a lot of discussion and questions. So before we get started, are you like me? Are you all stressed out by the holidays and we've barely gotten into December? Maybe you need a couple of minutes just to pull it together before we begin this session today, just to kind of get yourself centered and ready for what's to come. Well, you are in luck because we usually like to start these meetings with what we call a grounding exercise. So if you're not into grounding exercises, that's okay. Just take a few minutes to breathe because it'll be over in a minute. And we're going to get on with our program. For those of us that really appreciate this sort of thing, we're going to let Heather take us through a brief grounding exercise so that we can all shake off the holiday stress for a second and get on with our program.
Hi, everyone. My name is Heather O'Connor, and my pronouns are she, her, hers. So happy to be here with you today and lead you through this grounding exercise. Just want you to take a moment to just be where you are in this space and imagine that your tailbone is rooted into the ground like a tree and you're growing up through the top of your head in the opposite direction, just effortlessly floating forward. You can close your eyes if you'd like to close your eyes. And at first, just notice your breath. Notice if you're holding your breath. Notice if you're holding any tension in any part of your body. And I want you to take an intentional inhale in, inhaling all the newness, all the creativity from the people that we have here today, all of their talents, and inhale this experience that we're about to have together. Taking a big inhale. And exhale. As you exhale, go ahead and release any unnecessary tension that you're holding in your body that's not serving you. Release any of the tension, any of the stress that Mark was talking about. The holidays can be a stressful time. Release that. And go ahead and take a big inhale again. Inhaling the new and exhale. Exhaling the old. And one more time, we're going to take an inhale together. Inhale. And exhale. Beautiful job. Go ahead and I want you to take your fingertips and I want you to just gently tap on your face. We're going to wake up the proprioceptors in our body. Our proprioceptors are what allow us to feel our body in time and space. We're just waking up our body, waking up those proprioceptors, feeling ourselves where we are in the moment, right here today at this webinar. And go ahead and move to the top of your head, the side of your head to your ears, just gently tapping, waking up the body, down to your neck, continuing to tap, moving to your sternum, noticing if you're holding any tension there and just breathing into it, allowing it to leave you. Taking that tapping down to your legs if that's available to you. If it's not, just move to your sternum and your stomach. All the way down the legs. And moving to that left arm, tapping on the shoulder. All the way down to your fingertips. Taking a moment to tap your fingertips together. And then moving that action over to your right arm. Moving up your right arm. And up through your shoulder. To your neck again. Up to your face. Go ahead and stop at your head and place your hands on your temple and just go ahead and give yourself a little massage there. Just releasing any thoughts that are running in your mind that don't need to be there right now. Just allowing yourself to be present, to be here, right now with everyone in this webinar. Everyone in this space, sharing space together. So go ahead and open your eyes. I want you to find the right hand on your left shoulder. And I want you to just take a brushing motion down to your fingertips, brushing off any tension that's not needed, doesn't need to be there, getting rid of it. And then repeat that action over on the other side, the left arm, the left hand on the right arm, brushing off any excess tension. Beautiful. And go ahead and clasp your fingertips together, making a pillowcase with your hands. And place that pillowcase right on the back of your skull, right on the back of your skull. And I want you to tilt your head forward to find your nose touching your chest and sort of apply just gentle pressure to the back of the skull. And stretch the back of the neck where the skull's connecting to the spine there. Remember to breathe, still breathing in the newness, still exhaling all of the unnecessary tension that is not serving you. And hold this for a few breaths. And go ahead and take your right hand to the left side of your face. And I want you to tilt your right ear down to your shoulder and stretch your head down to the side, opening up the side of your neck, the clavicle, the shoulder, releasing, breathing here deeply. And go ahead and release, allow the head to return center. Repeat the action on the other side, left hand to the right side of the face. Allow the left ear to fall towards the left shoulder, lengthening the right side of the neck. Draw your attention to your jaw. Make sure you're not holding any tension in your jaw. Just allow your mouth to fall open naturally. Beautiful. And release. Allow the head to return center. And then I want you to take your left arm and reach it out to the side, up to the sky. And we're just going to go up and over, opening up that left side body. Feeling a stretch in the ribs, stretching all of those intervertebral muscles, making space for your lungs. Big inhale. And exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Go ahead and allow yourself to return center, stretching out that right arm, allowing yourself to reach over to the left, opening that right side body, lengthening, stretching. Beautiful, and allow that to return you center. Go ahead and place your hands on your lap and close your eyes one more time. We're just going to take a few breaths together. And taking a big inhale. And exhale. Focusing on the here and the now. Take a big inhale. And exhale. And one more time, taking a big inhale. And exhale. Softly opening your eyes whenever you're ready, allowing yourself to be present in the space, preparing for all the material that we're about to receive. Thank you so much, everyone. I hope you enjoy the webinar.
Okay, who am I? Why am I here? That felt very nice. Thank you for that, those few minutes of peace on earth, Heather. I really appreciate it. I'm glad I had my sound off because every time you made me do something, I could hear these pops and these cracks, which either means I really needed that, or I'm a long-term survivor over 60. Probably a little of both. Thank you so much. We are going to begin with our first speaker today. I am so excited to introduce to you Nelson. I literally have pages of introduction for Nelson in terms of the many things that he has done and the many organizations and things that he has founded. I will tell you this, Nelson has been living with HIV for over 35 years. He first came kind of on my radar when the book Built to Survive came out, which was incredibly influential. If you're old enough to remember a time when your fellow HIV positive folks, friends, went back to the gym in droves and started really paying attention to lean muscle mass and how they wanted to remain healthy and just to armor themselves against any possible HIV health concerns, then you can thank Nelson Virgil for that, because he really began kind of that process of all of us feeling healthy enough to be physical and to honor our bodies enough to get back and get strong again. Along the way, he has done so much. He founded the organization, the Program for Wellness Restoration. He's been a Ask the Expert expert at thebody.com for ages, answering questions about fitness and nutrition and lean muscle mass. But he's also done so much in terms of as an advocate, work convincing the federal government to look at the importance of lean muscle mass for people living with HIV, as well as what happens as we age. And he's been extremely involved in advocating for research for people who are not responding to medications. Even all the medications at our disposal. What if you're no longer responding to those? What do you do? How can you get access to experimental medications as quickly as possible? He's done all of that while also writing books about testosterone and creating a website called excelmale.com. So much going on. Oh, and on top of that, advocating for inexpensive and affordable blood work and all of that, so you don't have to rely on, the pharmacy that your doctor wants you to use. He started discountedlabs.com to help people living with HIV find a more affordable alternative. He's been a very busy man. He is here today to talk about living in a healthy way, in an engaged way as an aging person living with HIV. I have a lot of respect and admiration for him and a lot of affection too. So I give you for about the next hour, including a Q&A period, Mr. Nelson Virgil.
Thanks a lot, Mark. Mark, you oversell me and appreciate it. Mark and I have been around for a while. We've crossed paths many times in the post cruise in Fort Lauderdale and every conference, man, since the early 90s, Mark. I also want to thank Jeff Berry for bringing me in. Your reunion project is unique. It's probably the only thing like that going on, focusing on aging and HIV. Korea and New York has stuff going on too, but in a nationwide effort, yeah, that's probably it for us. So thank you and congratulations, Jeff, for now being the director of the entire project. So I really appreciate it. I've been around for a while, positive, I counted this morning, 39 years. I had symptoms in 83, really bad. And here I am. I'm multi-drug resistant. I have what we call a salvage patient. I'm on my last option. But that's good. I'm good. Being undetectable for maybe 8 years out of my 39. So that was a struggle. And I'm also what we call an immune non-responder, immunological non-responder. What does that mean? They call some of us MDRs, multi-drug resistant. So I'm an MDR patient. And I'm also immunological non-responder, INR. Those of us that have under 350 CD4, just because we've been long-term survivors, we tried everything. Our T cells probably went up for a little while and then came down. Mine stay around 280. So I'm also trying really hard to find pharmaceutical companies that are willing to research CD4 boosting therapies, and Jeff and a few others, bunch of others, have joined the effort on the AIDS Activist Treatment Coalition. But anyway, enough about me. I want to share my Heather. We're going to share the screen on the PowerPoints, the slides. And this is going to be a little bit different that I usually do. People want me to talk about, first of all, I'm not a fitness legend. I may be a legend because I'm old. I'm 63, going to 64, but I'm not a fitness legend. So Mark mislabeled, misbranded me, and I feel responsible now to talk about fitness, which is not really who I am. Mostly talk about hormones, survival, aging, new research drugs. But today I'm going to speak about something very different. This is more of an outside my comfort zone topic because I tend not to share so much about my inner self and my spiritual self. I usually am a brainy guy. I'm an engineer. I'm always talking about science. But today we're going to talk about what I've learned, and all of us have learned. If you're on this call, we all long-term survivors, and we have learned a lot. So I'm sure you guys could add even more. So I'm going to start with the first, please, Heather. First slide is basically a disclaimer. I'm not charging for this lecture. This is a service of my 28-year nonprofit called Program for Wellness Restoration, and it's not funded by pharmaceuticals. At least not my slide deck is mine. Nobody has influenced my content. I'm not trying to sell anything here. I do have a little at the end, a little plug for the company I started. I got off disability after 16 years and started this company called Discounted Labs because lab testing was too expensive and insurance companies were sending us surprise bills, even when the doctor said, yeah, we'll do that test and insurance will pay for it. So that really pissed me off when I started this company. But that's about the only plug. So I just want to say that. Also, I'm not here. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a clinician. I've been speaking about treatments, exercise, drugs, hormones for 30 years. It's only suggestions. Talk to your doctor if you are thinking about changing anything in your treatment program or protocols. Next one, please, Heather. I've never been this relaxed after Heather did that. 30 years of lecturing, never done that before. So I'm trying not to be too relaxed. But there are good news. I'm really trying to concentrate on the good things. I mean, we keep hearing about how we have accelerated aging and things are showing up earlier. There's a study or two that said that we're having comorbidities and symptoms earlier, like 15 years earlier than our HIV negative friends and family. And that's very disturbing, but I'm also thinking that we have learned and we are experiencing things that nobody else would experience, and actually they're all positive too. The first one, as a gay man, long-term survivor, we had a lot of stigma, not only about HIV, online, on dating hookup sites, on you name it. And this is not about gay, straight, everybody. Once they used to find out we're HIV positive, a lot of us used to get rejected. The date will end right there. It's a lot of that. And that's still going on, obviously, but not as much. We have PrEP that has really changed, at least in some communities, have changed the landscape. People being on PrEP and protecting themselves. And also the messaging that we've got, and many people, many activists have done great work on the fact that when you become undetectable, we are non-infectious. So that has also took a while, took like 10 years to do that messaging, has kind of made people more comfortable having intimate relationships with us. So believe me, for me, those two things have changed my life in the past, I would say 7, 8 years, so maybe, yeah. Several people have been cured already. We are counting, I think 4 or 5 already. And obviously those are extreme cases, doing stem cell transplants and high risk, but they're here. The miracle is here in front of us. Obviously, none of us are gonna go through this unless we have cancer and we failed at least 2 rounds of chemo and radiation. So these were people that were on their last option and they were offered to sign on this really risky stem cell / chemo protocols that actually worked. But it killed, that protocol killed at least 12 people that were also, that they were signing on to that type of procedure. So not everybody survived, but we have at least 4, maybe 5. Like every few months, one pops up, which is great news. But they all have something in common. Most of us are not like them. Even though I had cancer in the past, I did respond to my first round of chemo, but that's good news. New options for patients like me, multi-drug resistant. As 8 years ago, I thought that was it. I got on, thank God, that Trogarzo came up, which is an IV every 2 weeks that I did for 8 years. And I thought, oh my God, pharma is not gonna spend any more money on us because there's so many treatments, especially for early and mid stage. And the multi-drug resistant patients were screwed. So I'm very happy to see that at least 2 other options. One was approved too, and one coming up this month. So long acting. So good, thank God. Anyways, we're in a very privileged country of access, even though we know their problems, especially with healthcare, but we get treatments approved here before anywhere else. Anyways, survival, we all know. All of us are here on this Zoom because of the drugs and everything else that worked. So we are surviving even threefold from the 90s. A lot of new versions of the same drug have come through. So switching from tenofovir to TAF has helped prevent bone loss and kidney dysfunction. Although we're learning now that those switches also came up with some weight gain issues. We are also seeing good data on the decrease of cardiovascular risks now that we don't have protease inhibitors and Norvir and all that was causing high cholesterol. So that's actually very good. Yeah, obviously, we're still in danger of higher cardiovascular risks, and I'll speak a little bit about that. Less cognitive decline for people who switch away from Sustiva. Remember those days? All of us, I took every single drug. I think I've taken every single drug there is. And those were my worst days. I could not even think I was depressed. And now, obviously, Sustiva has been replaced by many other treatments. And integrase inhibitors, when they came out, they also have very little to no interactions with a lot of the meds that we're taking as we age. I'm going to show you guys my pill box. And we take, blood pressure meds, everything else. And the protease inhibitor class had a lot of boosting and interactions with everything else we're taking as we get older. Please, next slide, please. By the way, my accent gets worse as I speak. So Heather, another one. Sorry, I could not click on my own slides. So, we had a few. I think we had, these are three here. Obviously, Timothy, we lost, unfortunately, a very good friend of mine. I get emotional every time I talk to him, so I'm gonna move on. But he was obviously not only the sweetest thing in the whole world, but also the one that gave us the most hope. And Adam, who is from my country, he's Venezuelan too, but he lives in London. Second, he's been traveling around the United States lecturing. So I hope some of you guys met him. There's a guy in Dusseldorf that hasn't come out yet publicly, probably won't. And there's also a lady in New York that hasn't come out publicly. And there are a few, I think 2 or 3 more that we're waiting to see their data. But these are all people that had something in common. They all had cancer. They, as I said, they had failed a few treatments and they ended up being saved. Next slide, please, Heather. And I hear a lot of conspiracy online on the different groups and how pharmaceuticals don't want the cure to come up. But that's not really true. It's at the NIH and a lot of groups the Martin Delaney collaboratives and many of the NIH is spending money on trying to combine all these different options because it will be a combination approach to cure HIV without us having to go through high chemo or very risky bone marrow stem cell transplant. So we're seeing some encouraging data on antibodies, BNAbs, like the antibodies that were created for COVID. There's a combination approach. The cell and gene therapy, they're trying to modify it so it's a lot easier to provide as an IV. Immunotherapy, latency reversing agents, well, those haven't really worked out that well. But there's a lot going on, a lot of clinical trials. So we don't know when the real cure, accessible cure will come. I hope within my life expectancy, but here we are. We have treatments for HIV and still 25% of people don't have access to those treatments. So that's another ethical question to talk about when the expensive HIV cure comes up. Next slide, Heather, please. So I've learned a few things and I think you all can share this. I'm sure everybody else, I'm not a guru or an enlightened master or anything, but life sucks sometimes for all of us, negative, positive, everybody. We're not any special, but we do have, I think some of us have trauma. I really haven't really looked at my internalized trauma until a few years ago because I was too busy surviving and taking care of shit, taking care of things. And sometimes we don't have time. We're taking care of other people. We're doing things. We're busy doing. But we realize slowly but surely as we age that things start popping up, body aches, depression, a few things, gut problems that are all that internalized stress that we've gone through. We've gone through a war. We've buried friends. I buried 4 of my lovers, my partners. I have over 45 friends that died. I have basically 1 friend left from the 80s. And I had to really, because I'm a type A, as you can tell by the way I talk, type A plus person, I had to learn how to do mindfulness without thinking that I have to meditate. I can't meditate, but mindfulness is just being really aware of your presence. Whatever you're doing, taking a shower, driving for a few minutes, not even a minute, where you actually stop everything you're thinking and just be aware of the present and how lucky we are to be around this long, even though we all have body aches and surgeries and you name it. So that has been very difficult for me. That muscle, the mindfulness muscle, it's the hardest one to work out. My relationship with my doctor, thank God I've had the same doctor for 26 years. How lucky am I? He's been the most important ones in my life. And I've also learned, and this really surprised me 13 years ago, that my survival skills and resilience are also useful for people that are not HIV positive, or people that are not gay, or people that are not liberal Democrats like me. When I started sharing my expertise and my knowledge about hormones on excelmale.com and different things I'm doing, I realized nobody ever push out on the fact that I'm gay and positive, because I'm pretty public on it. And actually people kind of like the idea that there was a survival story and overcoming story. And I thought I was afraid to be out to the straight world and to people that were not HIV positive. And I've been proven wrong. And maybe I live in a bubble, but I don't think so. Most of the guys that follow my work are in the South of the United States. They're Republicans, gun loving. Most of my best friends now are straight men, gun loving Republicans. I have no idea how that happened, but they all know I'm HIV positive and I'm gay. And they still love me. And that has been a big deal for me, because I didn't think even 15 years ago that was possible. Not all tests are part of standard of care. I have to say that's why I have trust issues with the medical system. If you don't ask for certain tests, you won't get them. Just won't. Even if you have good insurance, even if you're privileged like I am, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. There are tests like we need, like high resolution endoscopies to see if we have anal cancer. I've had really a lot of experience on that. Not a fun thing to go through, but I've been diagnosed with high grade hyperplasia, which is one step below cancer, and you have to keep an eye on that. DEXA scans for bone density, and actually you can do a DEXA for the entire body to see the bone, fat, and muscle of every part of your body, and you can do one DEXA every 3-4 years because things change very slowly. Hormone tests, most of them doctors don't run them, and even if you ask, sometimes they don't run them. That's one of the reasons I created my company. Heart tests, reminding doctors, hey, I haven't done an AKG or a stress test in 3 years. Sometimes we have to remind. Doctors are good, especially with cardiovascular stuff, but we have to remind them, even my doctor who is excellent. STI tests, sexually transmitted infections. If you're not gonna speak up, and sometimes you don't even know you have one, but you start having symptoms, that's something else that is not, usually doctors don't talk about sex with their patients. So being afraid of getting off disability, that took 16 years of, that was very stressful. Doing all the research involved with it, how I knew I was gonna get caught anyways, because I was making money on the side, so like some of us are, and there's no way after a while you can hide the fact that but we're all afraid of losing our benefits, our insurance. It's very hard, especially as we get older. We have a big gap in the resume, and it's just very hard. I was lucky to do it, but it was not easy. I have to say, out of all the things that stressed me out the most, that was probably one of the top ones. But hey, some of us can reinvent ourselves, and some of us can decide to stay on disability forever, and that's fine. That works for you. Financially, I think we're all stressed as we get older. Some of us have to take care of our parents as we get older, and some of us didn't really plan to retire or to make or to, you know, all the things that you have to worry about after 60. I didn't think that was going to last. So that extra money is like, where's that going to come from? So that's why disability income is not the best, even if you have private disability. Next slide, please. Life is short. So I used to give away my time freely. Don't know why. I don't do that anymore. My time is valuable. Everybody used to think when I was on disability that I had nothing to do. So everybody would be asking for favors all the time. Even if you're not on disability or you are, your time is valuable. So learn how to manage it, how to say no. Be the cookie person, the person that, or the whatever, the goodie person that brings stuff to your doctor's office, to the clinic, to the massage therapist that takes care of you, or the therapist, or anybody you see more than once. You go to a restaurant, your favorite restaurant, tip that person well. Just make sure that those front line, the people at the desk, on the front desk, are the ones that have all the control of whether or not you can see the doctor without an appointment. Sweeten your life and everybody around you. So, and cookies are easy and cheap, and you can find them anywhere. Who's gonna say no? Obviously, you're contributing to the diabetes. But anyways, you get what I'm saying. The third one is the hardest one for me to talk about. Having compassion for yourself. Unfortunately, I'm wired that way. I'm very competitive. I had a career with Shell Oil, was an engineer, and blah, 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 had all that status. I got a scholarship, I was. So to let go of that, it took me, I don't know, 16 years. And to also have compassion for myself when I need to take a nap in the middle of the day and everybody else is working, or, I don't feel that great, so I cannot go to that meeting or to that. It's really hard, at least for me, because we keep comparing, I do, myself to everybody else that is healthy, and that has been difficult. And that's something that I think I'm better. But I'll talk a little bit about something else I did for that. But I've gone through, obviously multi-drug resistance, H. pylori, back surgeries. I had a neurological disorder that destroyed his hand, you name it. But what they say, what does not kill you makes you stronger. That is actually a cop-out, but it is true. And also be careful though, because we can all indulge in self-pity. And we have a lot of reasons to do that, but that doesn't serve you. That doesn't serve any of us. Yeah, embrace the fact that we have to grieve certain things, but in indulging is not a good thing. The do it tomorrow, I get caught on that, especially in the past year, especially with COVID. I'm going to go to the gym, or, well, I'll do it tomorrow. It's too late. It's raining out. And that is really one of those challenges that, but hey, I'm keeping up with it. The drama-free boundaries. I told my family and my friends not to, unless they really need to, talk to me about their drama or about something I need to help or fix. I would rather not, because my immune system can get affected by it. I know that's kind of manipulative, but it has worked really well for me. So next slide, please, Heather. And depression, it's a, thank God, mental health in this country is losing that stigma. In the media, the sports people coming out, the celebrities, that wasn't even around 10 years ago. Now people can talk about their mental health issues and not being stigmatized. And obviously, depression comes with all kinds of symptoms, and sometimes we don't even think we're depressed. Like I was having these body aches and stuff. Obviously, fatigue is there. Didn't want to go out to see friends and stuff, but I was just happy with Netflix and my dog and my partner. Never had suicidal thoughts. Sleeping, kind of off and off. And then I say, no, I'm just going through a rough time. But admitting that you need help is probably the hardest thing to do. Next slide, please. And they have actually done surveys. They did one on 2020 in New York. I think CREA was involved with this and the Health HIV study, the national survey. And they found, and this was before COVID, 831 people with HIV age 50 and older, 56% have been diagnosed with depression, 31 have been diagnosed with mental health issues other than depression, 27 diagnosed with PTSD. I didn't even know what PTSD was. I thought it was something that only occurred to people that went to war, and now I get it. 46% felt down or depressed, 39% felt lonely or isolated within 2 weeks prior to taking the survey, and 25% went 24 hours without interacting with another person. This got worse with COVID, as we well know, and some of us are trying to readjust to that, because I think at least me, made me a little lazy socially, and all the apps, obviously don't help, Netflix and Amazon, all that, and ordering food and all the things that come with privilege. So getting out of the house, getting out, especially if you work at home like I do, go to the gym, even if you see one person a day, it's a lot better for your mental health. I've seen data on that. So anyways, isolation is really what can really screw us, not only HIV, but non-HIV positive. Next slide, please. And this, I'm one of those guys that likes cheesy quotes. This one is one that I say forever. It's like, what screws us up most in life is the picture in our head of how it is supposed to be. So that's really when most of us, at least my friends and me, get depressed, when we are not accepting our present, our reality, and we think it should be another way. Because we see a person, we see in social media, the worst thing and the best thing that's happened to us is social media. But this is the worst thing, being mindful and thankful and grateful of whatever it is that you have, because we all have something, no matter how poor you are. So this is something I keep stuck on my computer side, because it really is a reminder to be more mindful. And the fact is that things that what they are, and you become a friend of your reality instead of an enemy. Next one, please. This is a really hot topic, and probably something that most of you probably expect me to talk about. I'm looking at the clock, I'm sorry, because I always go over time. The next tsunami, this tsunami is happening in the next 2-3 years in psychiatry in this country. The psychedelic therapies, meaning products that are going to be approved along with therapy, not for self-use or taking them home with you or all that. Has to be with a therapist in the room. And this on the right-hand side, I don't know if I can show my cursor. On the right-hand side, you see all these companies, and that's just a partial list of all the tiny pharmaceuticals. All of them are small biotechs, startups, money from Silicon Valley. I follow this stuff every week, creating different studies on mushrooms, psilocybin, the active ingredient, on ketamine. You can actually access ketamine now, IV or oral, for treatment of depression. MDMA, what used to be a party drug, ecstasy, all that, with therapy. All of these groups and the FDA is looking at the data, on the safety data of having a therapist with you in the room. When pharmaceuticals take over this market, it's all going to be expensive, as you well know. All the access that we have now is obviously under the table. They're all class 1 federal DEA legislated. So they're as bad to the FDA, to the DEA, as coke, as meth, even though there's more relaxation about the perception of use of the psychedelics that we heard about in the 60s. But I'm very excited. Have myself in the past 4 years become a follower and actually try different therapies in different settings. In Arizona with the Native Americans there, I've done that, done peyote, I've done ketamine IVs in clinics in Houston with a psychiatrist, LSD with therapy myself. I've tried psilocybin. This has opened me up. Why? People say, well, how about if you have addicted person? This is a one use only as a therapist. I've been able to get deeper into the stuff I didn't want to touch, and actually has made me a lot more grateful, more mindful, because it has opened a door to talk about things that probably would have taken me years. I tried therapy. I tried the regular therapy, and I would out-talk my therapist, and obviously I took control, so that didn't work out. In this one, you're so depending on the therapy and the environment. So I really believe, and obviously I'm biased, about what's coming, and it's coming soon. I mean, MDMA is going to be approved, ecstasy is going to be approved for PTSD maybe in a year. The studies have all enrolled. And then psilocybin is going to come after that in pill form and different things. But as I said, with therapy. Next slide, please. Another cheesy quote thing that really, it's the best I've ever seen. I mean, it summarizes everything I'm trying to remind myself every day. Make peace with your past so you won't screw up your present. What others think of you is none of your business, not their business, your. Time heals almost everything. Give it time. That's the hardest one, patience. Don't compare your life with others, and don't judge them. You have no idea what their journey is all about. Stop thinking too much. That's the worst one for me. It's all right not to know the answers. They will come to you or not when you least expect them. No one is in charge of your own happiness but you. Smile, you don't own all the problems in the world. Next slide. So, okay, I'm half through, so I'm good, I'm relaxed. Thanks, Heather. Developing resilience. Resilience is a hard thing to define. I've tried to look for the definition, it doesn't make any sense to me. But resilience is that really created, like all of us on this call, we had to develop resilience. We found out we're HIV positive, then we have to find treatment. Doctors deal with the medical system, which is already screwed up. Deal with stigma, talk to our friends, come out of the closet or different closets. Bury friends, take care of other people that are sick, blah, 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 all this stuff. And still come through, be happy, kind of grateful. It's almost like we develop resilience. It's almost like a callus, like a thicker skin that we all have to reframe. We have to reframe. When I found out, well, I found out many diagnoses. I looked at my CBT, my medical chart a month ago, and it was like 20 pages long. They list CBT codes, which is your diagnosis. Diagnosis that I didn't know I had. But anyway, I had cancer, which was the scariest thing, or this neurological CIDP is called. It was, first of all, I cried. Second of all, it's like, oh shit. And third of all, it's like, oh my God, what can I learn from this? Because obviously I'm going to have to do research because I'm a control freak. So I've done some work. I've done with Eckhart Tolle. I've talked about Tolle's book at the end, about how to befriend your reality, your situation, not be an enemy. Like you cannot be an enemy of HIV. HIV is part of our DNA. It's mixed in with our genes. The little bugger is part of us. It's kind of a stupid virus because it integrates with us. But if we don't treat it, it kills us. Unlike herpes and all the other stuff, at least, or HPV. So, yeah. I know it sounds weird, but we have to befriend HIV, even though we hate the little bugger. It's created a lot of problems. And also befriend whatever we go through. Protect your sleep. That's number one in my list. There's no mental health, no cardiovascular health, nothing without good sleep. And that's not as easy as people think, especially as we all get older. When you wake up, create intention. Take 2 minutes. I don't believe in prayer, but I do all kinds of things that are not prayer related. I'm kind of I'm an atheist, but I do believe in some power, whatever it's called. But I do ask and imagine what the day would be like and wish for the best intention. Try to make your bed that when you have really succeeded at something, one thing. When you take a shower, just make sure you're mindful. I know we all tend to race and think, but the shower, the fact that water's coming to you and touching you, it's just weird. It's the most mindful time. Finally, I got to a point where, okay, this is my time. Nobody else has this time. Nobody can call me, text me here. Get dressed. Even if you work at home, get dressed. So that was, especially through COVID, staying on your drawers, and that really can affect your mental health. Be mindful about media. I used to watch the news, well, we all did for a while for COVID, and I didn't realize how much it was affecting me, especially with Trumps and all the other stuff and all the hate. And I become a pussy when it comes, and I'm sorry, I shouldn't say that term, but I become really weak when it comes, or fragile when it comes to media, bad news, and horror movies. So lately, I cannot even deal with all that. And I know that if there's media, we're going to get it on social media anyways. And I like to know what's going on in the world, but be careful with how much you consume. Socialize, even if it's on the phone, even if it's a text or two, socialize. If you can and able to, get a pet. My doggy, she reminds me every 90 minutes or so, it brings me the ball and gets me off my ass. And it's also great to cuddle. The blood pressure goes down when you cuddle with a pet or with a partner. Don't avoid unbiased counseling or personalized treatment. Most of us tend to talk to our friends, but they're biased. Everybody knows us is biased for us. So talking to somebody that you don't know, and now I'm gonna talk to you guys about some access. Believe it or not, there are apps now, lots of apps that take your insurance and have counselors that you can access within 24 hours. Because it used to be hard to find a therapist. Next one, please, Heather. Yeah, walk every day. Thank God for my dog. So that really gets me out to walk every day at least for 30 minutes. Get a step counter app. I use Pacer that tells me how many steps I've done. 10,000 steps is supposed to be the best for cardiovascular health and blah, blah, blah. I've seen some data. 6,000 steps is more viable and doable. There's some data on 6,000. So at least try to get to that. Staying mindful. Oh, also get some sunlight. I know we've been told sunlight is bad for you, that cause skin cancer, all that. We need sunlight. We need to reset our internal clock, our circadian rhythm. And greenery. That's actually the strongest data we've seen lately on depression, mood uplifting. When we are walking through greenery, we need to see trees. And a lot of us living in cities forget about that. Stay mindful of your inner chatter. Are you becoming your worst enemy? If you could put what you're chatting in your head in a loudspeaker, would people put you in jail for abuse? Do something for others without expecting a reward. Get out of your self-centeredness. When I'm fatigued and tired and sick, we all become self-centered. Our world shrinks. We're all thinking about our pain, our this, our that. And that is the hardest thing, especially when we're going through a health challenge. If you're really tired, besides probably being depressed, get checked for sleep apnea. Talk to your doctor about sending you to a sleep study, and get your testosterone and your thyroid checked. Men, women. Women have testosterone too. And that's hard to get tested. And that's, once again, where I see a deficiency there when it comes to the medical establishment. Practice being grateful every day about what you have. I've gotten really good at this. At that one, yes. And psychedelics have really helped me, therapy, to see how damn lucky I am just too, even with all my stuff that I've gone through, we all of us, the fact that we're alive, our friends are buried. Anyways, but we forget every day. Be good to support staff in clinics and pharmacies. People help people they like. I'm running my own company and I run my own customer service. And it's amazing how people, the way you send an email to customer service, if you're not a nice person, you don't get what you want. I send people coupons, discount coupons when they're nice. So don't expect that when you have a problem with a company or you call in customer service, don't be in that mad, upset mode. That person is a human being that can actually help you out a lot, unless you're an asshole. And I learned that being the customer service person in my company. Next one, please. And there's a bunch of stuff we're taking. So there are concerns about interactions, what we call polypharmacy. Next one. This one is going to be a shocker. Oh, no, not this one. So there's supplements that, everybody's taking supplements or not taking supplements. We're spending money on things that may not work. And it's something that all Americans do. And that may actually stop because they're trying to regulate supplements. But anyway, vitamin D, we have good data. Vitamin D, 3,000 to 5,000 IUs to decrease parathyroid hormone that actually is affected by some of the meds, prevent bone loss prevention. NAC, we have some good data from the past on immune enhancement, glutathione enhancer. Glutathione is our own antioxidant that the body produces, and sometimes we have low glutathione and we don't fight disease as well. I've been taking that for as long as in the 90s. Melatonin, I take it every night. It really works for me. I do a chewable to get me to start yawning and being tired. A multivitamin with selenium, you don't have to go crazy on the dosing. There's some data from Africa. Obviously, people are not taking HIV meds, but they placebo control done by Harvard that actually proved that people on the one multivitamin versus placebo lived like a year longer or 2 years longer with HIV without treatment. Neuropathy, some good data on acetylcarnitine and alpha-lipoic acid. SAMI has been studied in New York for depression. It's also a glutathione enhancer. It's expensive, over the counter. And there's actually really good data on mood and joint pain, but it ain't cheap. Coenzyme Q10, good data on heart protection, prevention of myopathy or muscle weakness that can be caused by statins. And some of us are taking statins. Creatine monohydrate is the only workout supplement that has more than 50 or 60 studies. So definitely works to increase strength and muscle mass, but it can also increase water retention. And whey protein for those that can withstand lactose. It's also, we have some data on CD4s in the past. Next one, please. I took this picture like 3-4 days ago. It's a messy, but this is my pill box. You can see my keys and other extra pills outside that I have in case of, but I'm a little bit of hypochondriac, but that's okay. It works for me. It works for everybody. It works for people that know me and my family when they need something. But most of us, I would say a third are HIV meds. Supplements I take. Blood pressure is my only thing. I don't have cholesterol problems. Blood pressure, NSAIDs for pain. I do have chronic pain. Different things that happen. I just went through hip replacement 4 months ago, but I accept it. I have chronic pain, and that's fine. I treat it. I have digestive enzymes because I have IBS, and that works really well. And I have a bunch of other stuff there that in case I get this or in case I get that, especially on a trip. I'm about to go on a trip tomorrow. Next one. So we're taking stuff. All of us, most of us. Next one. Next slide, please. Just to give you an idea of what the interactions can be. So there's a bunch of stuff that people are getting either through a good doctor, testosterone, thyroid medications, if you're that lucky, modafinil for fatigue, nandrolone or oxandrolone, if you're lucky still to get it, if you're suffering from weight loss, muscle loss. Those two drugs were really researched a lot for HIV wasting. Egrifta, most people are not getting it. It's an injection, very expensive every day. Serostim, also very expensive. Not that many people are wasting. B12 injections. Trimix is an injection for to get an erection when there's no other things that work as prescribable to, PDE5 inhibitors, Viagra, all the stuff, Cialis, Zolpidem, and sleep aids, lipid lowering agents like statins, blood pressure meds. Back in the days, and I think people are still getting some injections for lipoatrophy, metformin for diabetes, antidepressants, semaglutide, which has become really, really popular for weight loss. It's an injection once a week. It's a diabetes drug that is now a generic. Daily baby aspirin, NSAID for pain management, cannabis for obvious reasons, nausea, pain management, and people are using them, and doctors are okay with that. Next one, please. And they did this data from HIV Swiss cohort, what the number of meds that people take before they're 50 and after 65, and all of them, you can see the p-value being statistical significant, less than 0. We all obviously, and this is obvious, this is a no-brainer. The only thing that we decrease with age is antidepressant use. I think there's a point there, and I've seen some data, that as we get older, we all develop more resilience. We all tend to have more acceptance of what is. We get therapy. Most of us reach out and get therapy. Whatever it is, you can see that before 50, 10, that's the incidence, and after 65, 7.8. So that's one of the things that maybe some of us have hopefully being able to deal with even, and sometimes it's just clinical and genetics. Next one, please. I don't need to. And if you ever have any questions, because pharmacists are not very good at this, some doctors are, they don't have time, is go to this website called HIVdruginteractions.org. By the way, you're going to get a copy of my slides. They're going to send it to you after the call. The handout has a lot more slides because of time restrictions, so you're going to have more information. But this website is really, I use it every time I get on something new, even supplements, to see if they need potential interactions. Next one, please. And I'll go through this real quick. You're going to have a handout. If you're how to increase lean body mass, that's been my lectures forever. I'm a little tired of talking about it. And decrease frailty risk. Frailty is a hot topic in HIV. Frailty meaning, we cannot go up the stairs like we used to. We're getting more winded. We cannot walk long distances anymore. That's frailty. There is definitely a higher incidence of frailty in HIV positive long-term survivors. And the best way to improve frailty is to increase lower body extremity, leg strength and mass. Legs. The number one cause of falls, or obviously is the weakening of the legs. So protein intake, weight training with a little cardio, testosterone if you need it, creatine is a good supplement to increase lean mass. And if your doctor is open to all the data we have on oxandrolone and androlone, if you have any lean body mass loss or weight loss. Next one, please. Heart disease too, not smoking, all the stuff that you've heard about. I'm not going to tell you anything different. We have better friendly HIV drugs now that do not cause increases in LDL and triglycerides. So that really helps. Next one, please. Fatigue is that's my number one problem. There are many causes: infection, low hormones, vitamin deficiencies, you name it, sleep problems, depression, heart problems, etc. Talk to your doctor about all this stuff because these are different options that people are using. Next one, please. Sexual dysfunction. Sexual dysfunctions are several things in one. Either you have no libido, no need or desire for sex. You can label that whatever you want. Sometimes it's a good thing, sometimes it's not. But if you have a partner, some of us are required to, do something. And there's something that releases a lot of stress, and it's a body connection of sex. So just giving up on sex because we're old probably doesn't make any sense. But anyways, low libido or erectile dysfunction, low libido for women, vaginal dryness is included in that with menopause and all that. The different treatments, seeing a good urologist, and the urologists are very good with men, very good with women, especially for changes in menopause in women, very important. Next one. There are also options beyond what you get in a CVS or a Walgreens, compounding pharmacies. This one here happens to be in Houston. My best friend owns this, the biggest one in the country, but doctors can fax a prescription here of many things. You can go to the menu for a third of it, 20% of the cost. Even when insurance companies say no, you can always get stuff directly through a compounding pharmacy, bypassing your insurance companies. Because that really is the biggest access situation we're having. Insurance companies say, well, it's not in formulary. Next one, please. And sleep changes with aging. Good data on the fact that we're getting less deep sleep and more light sleep. We wake up more frequently because we have to pee. We think it's the pee situation, but it really is. We're staying in the light sleep phase. So anything wakes us up, at least me, very light sleeper. I have earplugs, I have a sound machine, take melatonin. When I'm traveling, I take Ambien, you name it. Sleep is really the core of our survival, our mental health. We have people that snore next to us. I got rid of that. My partner is on a CPAP machine. Protect your sleep. Nocturia. Nocturia is frequent getting up more than once at night to pee. That can destroy your survival, mental health. And I know a lot of people as we get older, men and women, we think we have smaller bladders for some reason, or we have a prostate enlargement. Anyways, protect your sleep. Ask for a sleep study if you have to. Next one. And the consequences for not sleeping well: heart disease, blood pressure, heart attacks. If you sleep 5 or fewer hours, you have 45% greater risk of heart attacks and strokes. 5 or fewer hours. Your hormones, testosterone, growth hormone, thyroid, all of them spike around 3, 4, 5 a.m. You don't sleep well there, and you have to be in deep sleep. You don't produce the hormones. You don't hardly any. So a lot of the hormone deficiencies come from poor sleep. I can go on forever. I should write a book about sleep. Thyroid, testosterone, growth hormones are affected. The immune system is more susceptible to illness. Fatigue and depression are more commonly linked to poor sleep. Next one, please. And menopause. Many women, especially long-term survivors, go through menopause. Women with HIV have seen very limited data. I have to tell you something. The study of HIV positive women, so lacking, especially in hormones. But there's a study that said there was an acceleration of menopause in their, women in their 40s having menopause instead of their 60s or even early 60s. And there's changes. Estrogen goes down, progesterone goes down, testosterone goes down. So women in their menopause really becomes like a man because everything else is low, except they have a little testosterone going, but really are more like a man. And they have the hot flashes and the mood swings. And this is not every woman. Some women actually go through menopause without so many changes. But I'm going to show you a group I have. I created a group for women. There are 10,000, 12,000 women now on Facebook, and it's amazing. Women from all over the world. And HRT, obviously, the treatment of hormone replacement therapy, got a bad press like 15 years ago, and that has completely changed with new data. So anyways, I'm very concerned about the lack of testing in menopause. Next one, please. And I'm running out of time, but thyroid. Hardly any doctors check your thyroid when you're tired or you have the low thyroid, hypothyroidism is low thyroid. Obviously, you can have high thyroid, but that's completely different. You have hair loss and bulging eyes and sweating, but really hypothyroid is fatigue, coarse hair, loss of eyebrow hair, believe it or not, pain, like body pains, cold intolerance, number one. you're just, everything makes you cold. Depression, dry skin, blah, 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 all this, weight gain. So doctors, when you complain about thyroid, they check one blood test called TSH. And TSH doesn't tell you what's going on downstream on the thyroid gland. And that's my concern. So there's like free T3, free T4, there's reverse T3. My partner, for instance, and we have a great doctor, had fatigue, weight gain, everything. He had all this stuff, and his TSH came up at 3.5, which was within range, but it wasn't great. The good doctors know that 1.5 and below should be the case. So I said to my doctor, I think you need to check everything else, like the thyroid antibodies. And we found out he had Hashimoto's disease. Hashimoto's is autoimmune. It's your own body attacking your thyroid. And your antibodies, your thyroid antibodies, which you can check, are high. And that was it. We found out he had Hashimoto's. He starts taking thyroid medication to replace, and protect the thyroid from decay. And he was back to losing his weight, and he feels the same. So and it's generic. The treatment is generic. So please, if you have most of these systems, or maybe even 40% of these symptoms, talk to your doctor about more than TSH testing. Next one, please. I become a blood test kind of guy, as you well know. Low testosterone, we have very little time, so read it. It's in the handout. Next one, please. And you can increase testosterone naturally. Sleep, once again. Weight loss if you're overweight. There's some environmental toxins that some of us cannot avoid. If you have problems with blood sugar, you need to keep that under control. Exercise. There's no effective over-the-counter testosterone booster, and there are 100,000 of them on Amazon. Don't spend your money on that. Some of them are actually liver toxic. Next one, please. I'm going to make it on time. I am going to make. There are bunches of testosterone treatment now, gels, creams, pellets, and for women too. For women, there's not a testosterone product approved by the FDA for women, but women access testosterone creams through compounding pharmacies. Next one, please. And there's some new products, a long-acting injection that you can get every 3 months, nasal spray, that's twice a day. Some people like it. Orals, now there's an oral, very safe on the liver, that you take twice a day if you don't want to inject or do all the other stuff. Next one, please. I have a book, a 525-page. Basically, it's a slideshow that I use for training doctors. I got into that business for a while because they wanted to know about hormones, and we learned so much about hormones in HIV while we're going through wasting syndrome. So download this for free. It's all a slideshow with references, and hey, give it to your doctor if they're resistant to hormone treatment for men and women. Next one, please. Next one, some resources. There's like, COVID really triggered what we call telemedicine. Telemedicine was kind of hush-hush before COVID because, the doctor-patient relationship should be face-to-face. The government said, no need for that. We need telemedicine, obviously, COVID testing, COVID this. So last time I counted, we have over 250 telemedicine apps and clinics, obviously, because an app has to have a clinic. There's some for mental health. They have counselors, MSWs, psychologists. There's some for hormones, obviously. There's some for, you name it. But the counseling, the online counseling apps are actually really good. I've used 2 of them. You get to see a counselor within 24 hours. You have to fill a form and be interviewed, and the insurance they process insurance. And if you're not happy with your counselor, you can change until you're happy. It's like a dating game. Sometimes you don't like a counselor, but it's amazing. This is really, I think it blows my mind that we can stay at home through a Zoom call and get counseling. Anyways, next one, please. Have a HIV listserv. It's basically an online group. We chat every day. And if you're a nerd, I only recommend this for the nerds, the ones that don't mind seeing research data, Jules Levin posting every day and about the studies and conferences. But there are 1,800 of us there, and we've been around for 25 years. So if you want to subscribe, send an email to this email address. Next one, please.
Nelson, this is Mark.
I'm almost done. And the Landmark Forum changed my life. Google it. It's a 3-day weekend where you get more in touch with what your stories are, how you can change your perspective. Next one. I'm almost done. I'm timing myself. I have 2 minutes. Eckhart Tolle, The New Earth. This book changed my life. Love it. You have to read it slowly and several times, but it's about being mindful and learning how to be mindful without too much work. Next one. It's on Amazon. It's pretty cheap. Excelmail.com. If this is a YouTube channel, if you like hormone replacement information. Next one, please. And this is the Facebook group for women. It is active. There are women from all over the world. 12,000 members. You can search it on Facebook and become a member. Next one. I have 50 seconds. I'm gonna make it. There's a post-health Facebook group you can join. Next one. Register on Excel Mail. It's for men, but we have a section for women. Next one. I gotta make it on time. You'll see. This is me plugging my company. Next one. Lab testing of all kinds, the lowest cost. And the end. I made it. I'm 27 seconds away. Thank you. Now questions.
Oh my gosh. Oh, wow. Nelson, thank you so much. I'm going to interject before we begin the Q&A. First of all, don't ever interrupt Nelson to tell him he has 2 minutes left. He knows he has 2 minutes left. Type A. I appreciate you so much, and I love you dearly. I just want to say that I did not take a shower and put clothes on until an hour before this seminar today. So you telling us, make your bed, take a shower, get dressed, for God's sake. I felt so called out, and thank you, because that really is important. I know y'all have questions for Nelson. I want you to start putting them in the chat box there, and I'm gonna let Heather kind of moderate those questions and gather them for you to ask Nelson. That was that was really great. I'm going to turn it over to Heather for us to. We have 10 minutes or so for questions before we move on to Mark Misrock and the National Working Positive Coalition.
So go ahead and feel free to put your questions in the chat. I'm not seeing any just yet. Or raise your hand, and that's an option as well. If you'd like to raise your hand, we can call on you and you can ask your question.
There's some kind of pseudo statements that seem like questions.
Oh, here we go. My doctor has prescribed testosterone replacement, but I can't seem to get it filled. CVS says it's a supply chain issue. Can you enlighten?
Yeah, CVS, Walgreens, sometimes they have that issue. Costco, if you have Costco, it's great. Walmart has great access to pharmacy prices. We believe it or not, depending on where you are. And if everything else fails, you can have your doctor fax the prescription to Empower Pharmacy or any of the compounding pharmacies, all of them. And there are bunches all over the country. And they will fill it. You probably, depending on the testosterone, for a bottle of 10 cc's, which is good for 4 months, it'll probably cost you around $60. So the injectables are the cheaper. The creams are like $60 compounded. And Androgel is paid by insurance, most insurance companies. So if you are running to access issues with insurance, some insurance companies have a deal that they make with certain companies, so they only approve this, not that. At least try your local compounding pharmacy or Empower. Empower actually sends mails everywhere. Empower Pharmacy.
Jeff just posted a link to the evaluation. We'll post that occasionally throughout the seminar so that you can maybe click on it and have it in the background ready to go when we're done here. Heather, I just noticed a question from Mark. What is the best way to address polypharmacy? I seem to have a growing list of meds to match a growing list of maladies. It is starting to concern me, both for cost and pill fatigue.
Good question. You don't have to use that website that actually you're going to get on the handout if you want, depending on because all you have to do is click a list of things there, click supplements and click meds. And they're from the UK and they have really done a good job. Even a drug that is about to be approved is already in there. But anyways, and this is gonna sound crazy, but and this really pisses off some pharmacists, but it is what it is. Put all your meds, all the vials in a plastic bag, because sometimes they don't have you're having the prescriptions that you get from different pharmacies and they're not talking to each other. So get all those vials, put it together, and on off hours, not on peak hours, go to your pharmacy and say, I'm taking all this. Should I be concerned about any interactions? That is if you don't want to go to that website. The website really is the best way. But if you're not, yeah, believe it or not, some people do that. And the pharmacist's job is to talk about interactions. But don't be an asshole. Don't come up at 5 in the afternoon, 6 when there's a line. Don't be that guy or that lady. So be on off hours. Thank you. I'm sorry.
We have a question from Christopher, but before that, we just have a quick question from Wanda, and she wants to know, Nelson, was that a day's worth of pills or a week?
Oh, the pill box?
Mhm.
No, I would say 70%, 75% I take every day. And the rest are in case of, like diarrhea, Imodium for acid ingestion, Claritin for, there are things that come and go. We all know. There are things that we have to treat every day, HIV and blood pressure and maybe cholesterol and blah, 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 right? And there's things that come and go, allergies. I have all that in my box. Why? Because when I travel, I can lose everything in my life, but not that box. So I have access. And when I go on a cruise, like post-cruise, people find out I have that box and they start knocking on my door. So I become the pharmacist. But yeah, it's kind of a security blanket that I have.
Awesome. Christopher, you can go ahead and come off mute and ask your question now if you'd like to.
Nelson, thank you for the online resources that you offer, like Excel Mail, but do you have any sort of resource, any sort of online club where you chat with people more routinely? I often have questions that I want to ask you. I value your advice so much. Do you offer anything like that?
Yeah, I do. You just get access to me. I answer all my emails or whatever. I did give one of the slides at the end, a way to contact me. Okay, when I show the picture of me when I was younger and a lot better looking. In that slide, there is a way to contact me. Okay, so feel free to send me an email there and whatever I can do. I do coaching sessions, but I don't promote those because that's a lot of work. Meaning I go through your blood work and do all this stuff that I'm not certified to do. But yeah, send me, please. You're gonna get the handout. There's a way there to get a hold of me. There's also nelsonvirgil@gmail. Put it all together at gmail.com. I'll answer all my whatever I can do. Yeah, I love doing this.
There's also a question. Do you recommend trying to have as many as possible of our meds filled by the same pharmacy if possible?
Oh, yes, 100%. 100%. It's been a nightmare. I hate Walgreens. I've used them for 30 years. They become worse and worse. Let me tell you something, guys. We are high volume, high money patients. Okay? We should be treated as such. All of us, even the poorest one of us, is getting their medications paid. The average cost per year of a single one pill a day, not taking anything else, is around $8,000 to $9,000. Okay? Any of us aging, we're taking 3 or 4, I'm taking a bunch. I'm not gonna say how much, I'm gonna say my expenses when I see the bills. And please don't get too crazy on me because I do take drugs that are very expensive. Is $450,000 a year. Okay, because I'm a multi-drug resistant patient. I take that IV costs $12,000 a year. Thank God the insurance pays for it. It's an orphan drug. We are high volume, high expense patients. We should have a special treatment. And if you're not getting that special treatment, there are community clinics. Like I learned, I'm going to tell you something. I've been biased because I'm a privileged man with health insurance. You know, my partner works for the government. So I've always gone to the CVS and Walgreens, and my doctor was saying, Nelson, go to the public Ryan White Clinic. They have the best pharmacy, and they treat you with. I switched 6 months ago. Oh my God, it's been the best thing in the whole world. A clinic that specializes in HIV. Obviously, not everybody has a luxury. That has to be usually big cities. But Ryan White, the clinics, public clinics, have great pharmacies with them. So if you're not being treated with a customer care that you know, and besides, one database, they can see potential interactions. But as I said, I hate Walgreens, and I mean, Costco, Walmart have become great in my group. People love them. Cheaper copays and more customer service.
And then Mark wants to know if you have any simple nutrition tips to give.
Yeah, okay. Never skip breakfast, okay? Don't eat cake for breakfast. I know that sounds stupid, but a lot of us eat sweets for breakfast. It's the way we've been raised. Cereal is cake. Bagel is cake, okay? Try to have eggs, something that has high fiber. I eat black rice for breakfast. Breakfast is the most important meal of the day. Most of us skip it because coffee makes us anorexic. Coffee is actually an appetite blocker. And try not to have, and I'm dealing with that. I deal with this, where my hunger is so much worse at night. And then you go to bed with a full stomach and you don't sleep well, you know, and your metabolism changes. So try to shift all those calories to early during the day and not eat as much at night because it helps everywhere. So eggs, and I know people get tired of eggs. Any protein source that you can find. I do black rice as a fiber source in the morning. In the morning, have, you know, a tuna sandwich, something with protein and vegetables and greens. And at night, you know, chicken breast or tuna or whatever with a little bit of greens. Always have some vegetables in it. And and make sure you have enough fiber, you know. But I have all this in writing. It's just that I don't have time today. I can send, if you send me an email through Nelson Virgil, my name, all together at gmail.com. I have all this for years. That's the way I used to speak about. Yeah, I have even diets, actually daily menus that people have created for me. Yeah.
Great. And our next question is, do you know of any research targeting HIV-related polyneuropathy? This is likely from DDI, DDC, Zaret, etc. from the early days.
No, there's no at all, because I have a polyneuropathy of my hand, and this is an orphan condition. They call it orphan. Polyneuropathy, unfortunately not. They are, however, new drugs, injectables. 2 of them were approved last year for diabetes-related neuropathy. Okay, so you would have to, and I can email you that information too. Email, you would have to search that, research it, have your doctor write an off-label prescription, because you don't have diabetes, so most of the time you don't. And then the doctor has to write a medical necessity letter to get your insurance to pay for it, because you have neuropathy, but you don't have diabetes-related neuropathy, which is in the label. But there are ways around. So there are some biologics that have come up for which may help for the HIV-related nucleoside. We call it a nucleoside neuropathy, the DDI and D4T, and all of these kind of destroyed a lot of our nerve endings, or made them you know, susceptible to neuropathy.
Are you hearing or reading anything about urolithin A to improve mitochondrial quality, possibly decreasing neuropathy for many of us long-term survivors?
I don't know that word. I mean, what is it?
Urolithin A.
No, No, but be careful. The FDA sent a cease and desist letter to different companies that were marketing to neuropathy patients supplement. Why? Because neuropathy is debilitating, and there are hardly any treatments, and people would buy anything to decrease that pain, numbness, tingling, and they abused it. So the FDA had to send a cease and desist to 5 companies. I follow the FDA notices against supplement companies. So be very careful. Just make sure. I should have listed it. I forgot. There's a website called Examine, Examine, EXAMINE.com. Is the only website I trust on the internet to get data on supplements. They are a bunch of PhDs, no ads, no money, there's a subscription, but you don't need it. When you have a doubt about a supplement, go to examine.com. If it's not there, there's no data.
Nelson, this is Alistair. If it's okay, I'll take this up with you offline.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
Awesome. Are there any more questions before we begin to close out? Any burning questions?
You can always email me, go to my sites. There are many ways to get a hold of me, so.
Nelson, you know how much I think of you and how much I appreciate you being here today. That was great. And a lot of that information exchange reminded me of the very best of us in the early days when we were all just this, before there was internet, there were those people living with HIV saying, do you have this doctor's number? Have you heard about this study? Have you heard about this drug? It's the ingenuity that we share as long-term survivors, and you're such a perfect example of it. Thank you so much for being here today.
Well, thank you for having me. Appreciate it. I need to pack because I'm leaving tomorrow, living overseas. So I appreciate it.
Well, go and safe travels to you.
Thank you so much, everybody. Good luck.
Thank you. Y'all, we're not even done yet because we have another terrific speaker about a great topic and talk about an expert in his field. Mark Misrach has been doing this work for an awfully long time, ever since the whole idea of people living with HIV thinking about returning to the workplace, or what all their benefits mean, or how do they get off disability, or how do they maximize their disability benefits. All of that, if you had a friend in the HR department that knew everything that you needed to know about HIV and those complications, that would be Mark Misrach. And he has been working with the National Working Positive, I want to make sure I get that right, I say that right. Yes, National Working Positive Coalition, and he brought some friends with him today to serve on a panel to discuss back to work and working issues as a matter of health equity. And I really love that. I love that the concept of this is about health equity. This is about our desire to return to work, our ability to do it, the pathway to it is a matter of equity. It's like human rights, and it's so critical to our health and to our well-being as we look into the future. These are who Mark has brought with him today, with Sylvester Askins Jr. And the two other people he's bringing are Martha Cameron, ED of the International Community of Women Living with HIV North America, and Grace Detrivara, and I hope I said that right, Grace, who is with the Osborne Association in New York City. And I'm going to turn it over to Mark to have y'all discuss this really important topic. We will be finishing up Mark's presentation with more Q&A for Mark and his panel. And so I look forward to that, and I'll turn it over to you, Mark. Thanks very much.
Mark, thank you so very, very much. I am so blown away by Nelson Virgil's presentation, but have been blown away by his decades of incredible work and leadership from the earliest years of the epidemic. I'm so happy I had a chance to hear him yet again today, and so deeply appreciative of him, and really appreciate the Reunion Project for bringing him on for us. and for including the National Working Positive Coalition in today's event. I am joined today by 3 folks that are among the most incredible heroes to me at local, state, and national levels. I am first going to introduce, one of them is in transit as we speak, and I think she will pop back on. Martha Cameron was incredibly kind enough to join us, even though she has flown from DC to Michigan this afternoon and is in transit right now, but will be joining us as we continue. I first want to introduce Grace DeTrevera, who is the LGBT liaison and reentry and health educator at the Osborne Association, which is a social justice organization in New York City, which provides services for those individuals, families, and communities affected by the criminal justice system. Grace is, to say the least, also a regional and nationally recognized motivational and outreach speaker on topics related to health, transgender visibility, and liberation in all things human. Grace is featured currently in episode 4 of Pride, the docuseries that is currently now streaming on Hulu, and is featured in Trans New York 2020, a book by Peter Busian. Grace is a member of several New York City, New York State, and national initiatives focused on incarceration, mental health, and trans inclusion. Grace has prioritized work to address needs and disparities of transgender and non-conforming and non-binary and intersex individuals in housing, employment, and to healthcare. And in February of this year, in 2022, Grace was featured in the cover story for ANU magazine. Martha Sichone Cameron is originally from Zambia, Africa, where she was born and raised. I'm going to read the brief bio she gave me, which is super humble, as is Grace's. She is the executive director for the International Community of Women Living with HIV, ICW of North America, and special projects coordinator for the Positive Women's Network. Other past positions included serving as director of prevention for the Women's Collective, a leading community health and human services agency in Washington, DC. And Martha is, to say the least, actively involved in various policy, advocacy, and research forums, including the U.S. People Living with HIV Caucus and the DC Center for AIDS Research. And among the recent projects that I've been privileged to work with Martha on, she's been an incredible leader of the Quality of Life Working Group of the U.S. People Living with HIV Caucus, which I hold responsible for helping advance prioritization of quality of life in federal HIV care priorities after so many years when we found it very difficult to see movement in that area of focus. And next, I want to introduce my frequent partner in training and technical assistance, Sylvester Askins Jr. Sylvester is the CEO of Moving Forward Consulting. Moving Forward Consulting provides individuals living with HIV the knowledge and resources to make informed decisions about their economic futures through employment. He created the Pathway to Independence program, which is designed to assist people living with HIV in successfully navigating issues surrounding Social Security disability issues and the effects of returning to work. And it's currently offered at the University of Virginia's Department of Medicine in ID clinic. He also works as director of health programs at the Urban League of Hampton Roads in Hampton Roads, Virginia. Before founding Moving Forward Consulting, Sylvester worked at the Independence Center, a center for independent living, CIL, in Norfolk, Virginia. He was the coordinator for the agency's Ticket to Work program, funded by the Social Security Administration. And in this role, he assisted individuals with disabilities across all parts of the disability spectrum to prepare for and obtain meaningful work. He is trained as a community work incentive coordinator, a benefits counselor, and he has focused his efforts on work incentive policies that assist people living with HIV to make well-informed financial decisions about work. He is a seasoned facilitator and nationally certified trainer. In addition, Sylvester has many years of experience as an advocate and activist, including working for several major labor unions as a labor organizer. And I will share, in addition, that I have the pleasure of working alongside Sylvester and with Vanessa Johnson in the Training Center of Expertise for Expanding Employment Opportunities for People Living with HIV, which is a project supported by the New York State Department of Health AIDS Institute. And with that, we have a magnificent panel. I understand that Martha is in transit and encouraged me to allow her to go first. I want to just set up our discussion just a little bit. We are going to be talking about improving employment options for long-term HIV survivors and strategies for health equity and quality of life. And indeed, up to the moment, up all the way through the epidemic to 2022, considering employment and employment services as key factors in health equity for people living with HIV in general and for long-term HIV survivors is a very marginalized area of focus. And indeed, in considering the quality of life of people living with HIV in general, and especially that of long-term HIV survivors, it is also not the case that we have a very well-developed history of attending to addressing the employment needs and interests and opportunities of long-term HIV survivors. I myself have been living with HIV since at least 1984, and because employment became a central crisis for me in the early 90s, I managed to somehow clumsily stumble my way into the world of employment services, workforce development, vocational rehabilitation, as they applied specifically to the needs of people living with HIV. And I very slowly scratched and crawled my way out of a job that I had started as sort of a novelty and an adventure, which was driving a cab in San Francisco. Started that in 1988 and found myself trapped there because I didn't have college degrees, I didn't have qualifications, I didn't have work history that allowed me pathways into work that would be less punishing than that job became after 4 years of doing it. I ended up working as a cab driver for 7 years, and before I could finally move out into the new career that I determined to develop for myself, which is working in employment services for people living with HIV. But in 1995, I started to actually get paid to work in this field, and I have had a focus on this work ever since, with an only continually developed awareness that us as long-term HIV survivors have rarely had access to information, to services, to resources that we deserve, that should be seen as our right to develop the healthy and the healthy lives, the quality of life the well-being that could be possible. Too many of us continue to struggle with poverty related to underemployment or unemployment, and too few of us have gotten information about strategies that could work for us to maintain our access to health coverage, to financial security, to housing, to other resources that are critical to maintaining our well-being. And so I'd like to encourage that everyone in our session today consider the focus of our discussion in two ways. Number one, absolutely strap on your air supply first. I hope that you collect and gather any and all information that may apply directly to your own potential of making changes you might want to make and need to make related to employment. But I also want to encourage this group, because I see so many heroes in our community in this meeting today, and consider that you are gathering information and considering concepts and advocacy priorities to really make the change that's needed in the HIV landscape so that more of us may get the access to the information, the guidance, the services, the resources that could actually allow us to develop employment and improved economic security and improved access to improved health coverage that may be possible through employment. With that, I want to ask Martha if she would speak first. I'd like to hear your thoughts as they are related to both your professional expertise and your personal expertise. And indeed, I will just say that all three of our panelists are with us today based on a combination of professional expertise and personal expertise related to the topic of health equity and quality of life for long-term HIV survivors. And I really appreciate you all joining us. Martha, could I turn it over to you?
Mark, I am actually going to be stationary here in about 5 minutes.
Okay.
So if you want to have another panelist go, and then I will absolutely speak second, and I'm really looking forward to it.
Thanks so much, Martha. You are, as ever, a hero today, participating even as you had to add this travel to your day unexpectedly. Thank you so much. We will come back to you. And if I could go first to my friend Grace de Trevera, who is one of the country's leading heroes across a number of areas of underattended focus in the HIV landscape. And I so appreciate you, Grace, for planning to join us and share your insights and observations.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am just so proud to be here because we got another day, right? They gave us another day, the spirits, the prayers, the meditations, or whatever rock you climb under to go under to tell you to continue to be here. We're here today. I'm Grace de Trevera. I'm the LGBT liaison here at the Osborne Association. My pronouns are Miss, she, and her. I'm just so elated to be here because, you know, in 1988, when I was first diagnosed, I was in custody. And when I say in custody, that means I was in corrections, New York State Corrections at that. And we were in a time then in the 80s where you were either doing two things, denying it, ignoring it, or saying that you don't know what they're talking about. That was the climate back then, at least in that environment for me. But knowing my reality and knowing what I was returning back to, which was the community at large, I knew that I had to do something back then. And first, I had to know what my diagnosis and my status was. Back then, I was probably, because I'm 60 today, meaning Christmas Day. I'll be 60 in 22 days. Christmas Day is my birthday. I would say I was probably, see, I don't like telling my age like this, but I didn't already told it. I was in my early 20s. I was in my early 20s when I was diagnosed. And why is it so important today as it was then? because today there are so many ways to still forget, as so many people do, that this disease can and will be and can be chronic. I believe that we've lived in a time where we live with the word chronic, that's all we knew. So we did everything that we possibly could, or I know I did, to make sure that I can make another day. That meant I needed to go get some education. I needed to do all those things to prepare myself for the street. Already being a marginalized community, having a record and very, very limited skills, I had to create something that called common sense. What was I going to do besides go home and be free? Being free also means you got to pay some rent. You got to do something. And I wanted to be empowering for myself. So I had to get educated. And that's what I did. I became very educated on everything from certifications to knowing how to be a peer educator. I did all those things. And if you're not a person who's been locked up before, look at it as if you were in a shelter or you were just living somewhere that you had nowhere else to live, but the situation and the circumstances can still be the same. You still want to live, regardless what that situation is, whether it's jail, on the curb, under a bridge, or in a room. You still want to live. And the one thing that's always been helpful to the services of which we do here at Osborne and what I go around this country doing is that this is a community in which everyone is almost embarrassed by or ignored. And that's okay. I'm willing to take the face for that. I go all around this country talking about that because we cannot continue to act like this disease or this virus or this health disparity, whatever you want to call it, is something that any community can deal with and ignore. Yes, there's treatments. Yes, there's all these wonderful ways in which you can prolong your life, but you got to do the work. And when you're on this side of the fence, for those who deal with those who are marginalized and deal with those who are maybe case managers on here, I always say, get into the lettering of a lot of documents. And when I say lettering, don't get into people's personalities. And I say that coming from a community that, you know, most of us call the alphabet people or whatever you want to call it, but we're going to do it the proper way, and that's the LGBTQIA. What I've learned is that when you're dealing with health in this day and time, it has always worked for me, and I'm not going to stop doing it, is that I don't look for those comfortable places. I think that is helpful, and it's probably the great thing to do, to go and find something that you're comfortable with. But if we really want to be realistic, in my opinion, I get involved with anything that has something to do with health, because at the end of the day, somewhere in that department or that curriculum or that conversation, HIV will show its face. So I don't wait for it. I go there and I find out what those possibilities and what are you doing about HIV, whether that's a clinic, a community center, anything that uses the word health. And it has been very helpful, because what I don't do is that I don't bring up my gender identity. They see it. And if they don't see it, that's even better. But what I always try to suggest to those who are already marginalized outside of this status of being HIV is that to get the services and the needs and get the message out to the people who you care about, go to those places where they are delegating assistance, help, and service for health, whether it's HIV, whether it's Hep C, whether it's HPC, MPV, monkeypox virus, whether it's any of those things. Make your presence known as a case manager, as a community activist, as a human being, as an individual. Because understand, this disease, until they are able to make the vaccine that's coming real soon, so they say, it is still necessary that we educate ourselves, that we pass it on to those communities that we know are not getting the information. We need to stop talking to the communities that already know this information. At least that is how I advocate. I don't keep going to the choir and telling them all the stuff that they know already. I go to those communities that are resistant, like the Muslim community, the Amish community, because those people have sex too. Okay, they have relations with us. They walk away from their communities and they come join us for 20 minutes of fun, whatever community that is. And then they go back to their regimented religious or custom or culture. That is where I believe in this day and age we should be as activists. And that is what I do.
Grace, I so deeply admire how powerful a health advocate you are, especially for communities that need strong voices and advocates. I wonder if you could share some of your thoughts about the relationship of employment and to health equity for the communities that you work most closely with, for people coming out of incarceration. What is the meaning of employment and employment services when for people living with HIV coming out of incarceration, and how is it related to health equity and quality of life?
Well, if we're to be honest here, a lot of times when you know your diagnosis and you know what you're eligible for, meaning monies, HACA, SSI, you go in looking at employment as, am I able to work? Do I want to work? And will this be able to be done with the deliverables that I need to just live? Meaning that I'm going to say this because I think this is the most relevant place to say it. I always say, don't bring your health up unless it's necessary. And I don't believe that there's any place that you go to that actually wants to know if you have any like needs. Maybe you need that 5-minute break because you tire out or you go through some sort of form of wasting or something. But I don't see anything that particularly tells anyone, unless you're you have some mobility problems. I just say that go where everyone else is going, but first find out in your own community, at least with my community in New York State here, with all of these organizations that have all these different grants. I always say start off small. Start off asking for some entry-level positions, because a lot of times when you're just being released from prison, there's so many deliverables that you have to do and obligations. You have to be at home at a certain hour. You have to, there's certain places they're not going to let you work because they may have alcohol in that place, or it may be an address that's so there are some discrepancies and disparities when it comes to working when you are coming from the criminal justice system on parole. But it should not. And when I deal with my caseload and my participants, I'm very realistic with them. What do you want to do? Do you want to work? Do you have those abilities to work? Because at the end of the day, your health status, and this is real funny to say this right now because I couldn't see me saying this 20 years ago. Our health statuses is no different on paper than a person who has epilepsy or a person who has a mobility situation. And if we were able to look at it like that, and we have this opportunity and the climate that we're in right now, where working is encouraged, and I surely encourage it with my caseload because they're already able. So I would say that use the organizations that are already here in your cities, and whatever city that is. I'm sure that there are various health organizations. Go to your city health department and see what type of entry-level positions that they have. And then bring up questions like, do they have anything about outreach? Start small. And I'm particularly talking about those communities that I deal with: parole, foster care, those who are coming or going into the homeless community. Those are the communities in which I serve.
Thank you so very much, Grace. I want to follow up and just say that I think sometimes the folks that I've one of the reasons I invited you is because for years now I've seen you advocating for employment with the folks that you work with in almost every setting I've ever heard you speak or read you submit your thoughts. And I wonder if you have anything to share about the importance of addressing employment needs of people of trans experience.
Well, you know, first of all, I always have to go always back. You have to talk to people. You can't assume that because they're in your office or they're in your face, that because they say they want to work, that could be just something that's the right thing to do at that time. Working is a very big deal when a lot of people have not necessarily dealt with their health status. And when people are coming from corrections, and I'm going to keep it on me as an example, I didn't have any disparities, no opportunic infections, none of those things that would have me or have my parole officer feel that they would have to monitor my parole or monitor me as if I'm homeless. How would they monitor my case manager? If I was living under the bridge, how would I be able to come into Osborne and still get services? All three of those people can get services, not only here, but probably in the states and cities in which the people are watching this. I say that with a surety because this work always tells us to first talk to our participants. You must know who you're talking to because we can send people anywhere. We can send them to the Department of Labor. We can send them to a job that someone told me about. But if people are not at peace with their status and knowing their energy levels, are they able to do the work that's instructed of them to do? You have to have it, and I know I do. I make it required that this is what they want to do. Because in this country, sitting on your butt, sitting on your ass, using your medical status as reason to do nothing, usually gets a short run. It don't get a long run. It usually gets a short run. History has taught us all that. So I let everyone know indirectly when I speak to my clients, if you're looking to come here and run the game on me, I'll listen to it because I understand. Because remember the community in which I'm serving. I'm not serving that middle class, working class person. I'm serving people who are just getting out of prison or going to prison, those who are in homeless shelters, transitionals, SRO, single room occupancies. This is the community in which I serve. So my reality may be different of how others would navigate and instruct those to return back to work. It is not an easy task because what you don't want to do is tell someone I have this work and you send them there and you've never had the conversation with the person. And you come to find out that this person really wasn't ready for work. So it's not a battle. I don't like to make it sound complicated because for me, it's not complicated. I think I take the air out of the complication because as a case manager for me, as an advocate for me, when I use myself as an example a lot of times things are revealed to me. And that allows me and my caseload or my participant to tell me what's really going on. That's not always promised. Some people are good at doing the logistical work. They could do the stuff that's on paperwork. They could do this all day long. But can you actually say you had a conversation with the person? When was the last time you worked? Who says it? Who's going to hire you? Are you able to, when did you take your meds? Is your meds going to be a problem? How is parole? Does parole even know that you're on your meds? Because see, when I came home, years ago, they had a right to know all that. Thank God for the legislature. Now, parole officers do not need to know one's health status unless you want them to. That is how far we've come along with this. I had to worry about police officers and sergeants and all of that knowing my status when I was on parole. That is no longer legal now. So it is, at least in New York State. So it made it a little more easier to navigate my clients and tell them to go, if I want to send them to a warehouse, I know the type of work that they want. Are you able to do this? If they want to be a porter, are you able to deal and be around things that have chemicals? And are you able to stealth? I do those questions that the SSI questions say. How long can you stand more than 20 minutes? You remember that question? Can you stand longer than 20 minutes? Can you hold a pen more than 20? Those are questions that SSI asks. So those are the questions that I would hope that case managers who are watching this and listening to this, that you do the homework as well, because we are not doing a service if all you're doing is reading the questions. Well, can you work? What do you want to do? You're not being of service. You're really not.
Grace, I am so grateful to be partnered with you in this work and really appreciate you joining us today. I'm aware of the time, and so I'm going to move forward, and I hope that you can stay with us for the Q&A and discussion. I'm at the end of the panelist comment.
I'm right here.
Martha, thank you so much. Martha, is this a good time to move to you?
Yes, sir, it is.
Thank you so very much. I'd be so grateful to hear from you, especially since you've been a leader at the national level in moving a lot of this work forward as part of your work in many directions, including with a focus on advancing responses to the issues related to quality of life of people living with HIV.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for this opportunity, Mark. I would not have missed it for the world. Can you all hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, awesome. And yes, bravo, Grace, for sure. I'm always inspired when I hear them speak, and I think they articulate some of the very specific issues that are related with some of the case management systems. But Mark, since you talked about it, and I know that I'm talking to many people who are aware that, especially for the Ryan White Emergency Care Act, as it was established, it was meant to help people who were understood to be dying and transitioning out of this life, and not necessarily living for the 10, 20, 30, 40 years that we're all celebrating. I myself am celebrating 20 years of being HIV positive, and I have the multiple experience of being an immigrant to the United States, so very humble about even the opportunity to represent sometimes Black women that have experienced the overall structural and oppressive systems of the United States all their lives, right? I am also a Black woman. And I have had the opportunity to work with many different people that have been oppressed. And so this effort that you discussed by the US People Living with HIV Caucus to begin to address the fact that we are not just our viral loads, right? That we're not, we appreciate and have benefited from the biomedical advances and systems that have helped us get here, but people have been talking about their quality of life for many years as they have started surviving with HIV. And it intersects with so many things that it was important to begin to highlight the fact that as people are aging, as people are living longer, or even for those long-term survivors that were born with HIV, there are various issues that are intersecting with their life that have already amplified, the already existing sort of disparities, including poverty and including employment. And so we had this great opportunity to write a very powerful agenda in collaboration with many organizations represented here that essentially was meant to direct the federal government and their counterparts to say, look, I think enough is enough. And you all need to start paying attention to the quality of life of people living with HIV because it is just long overdue. Research, which is sometimes not even communicated to us, the community, has long time been showing that we're experiencing a lot of comorbidities, a lot of issues because we're aging. But most importantly, Mark, I think one of the issues that I saw, especially working in DC, is how the issue of poverty and some of the related outcomes intersect with our HIV. You know, and I realized personally early on that if I didn't get a job, and all I was getting, and I always say, love case managers unsung heroes of this movement. Case managers are able to write you a referral to a food bank. It doesn't matter that the food that you're getting at the food bank could be expired, not great for your health, not aligned with the culture and the cooking that you do. They'll get you a referral to a food bank. They might, like Grace is saying, check off a few questions on an employment checklist, but they're not going to do the work of saying, how do you get off of disability? If you want to get disability, what can you do to get employment that will not discriminate against you, especially if, just as Grace was saying, you also have a criminal record, you have some drug charges on your record. What can you do as a person living with HIV? That is the work that people just have been afraid to do. And so you find that even as organizations that are taking care of people living with HIV, it's just easier to keep the clients on SSI, you know, because the numbers also look great for you. Okay, you want to keep 30, 40, 100 people on your caseload and be checking off the fact that you've done an SSI income form, you've done this other, you've given them a referral to a food bank. It's easier that way. And sadly, you're right. A lot of these case managers could actually be equipped to do more. But we have found out, Mark, especially in the work that we've been doing around quality of life, that the Ryan, and of course the amazing work. The first time I met Mark in DC when he was preaching, I call it preaching about employment. I was trying to get a group of women that were interested in working, but had all these barriers. Some of those barriers could actually include violence, for example. You know that the only way to get out of an economic oppression type of relationship is to get a job, get yourself supported so that you didn't have to economically depend on this guy that eventually actually killed. We had one homicide in DC that I'll never forget. The woman went back from a shelter. She had been trying to get a job so she could leave this man, and he eventually stabbed her to death, right? The only way we can do this is by doing the work of somehow helping the federal government understand that it's a little bit more than biomedical care, and that they need to equip our case managers to do a little bit more to be able to say, if they can help people get employment that is beneficial, they can get people out of poverty. And I'll say really quick that I was very privileged to attend a meeting last week where, after we successfully, and again, collaboratively with many people on here, managed to get the Office of National AIDS Policy to include indicators, quality indicators in their national HIV/AIDS strategy. HRSA, among other, and I'm hoping other agencies will follow suit, actually called a meeting last week, an expert meeting, to review the quality indicators and how potentially they can work with this, because now they're being required, it's being strongly recommended. And they said to us that Ryan White was just never created to do this. And so it will take a lot of creativity. It will take a lot of advocacy on our part to keep talking about the fact that if we can equip, if we can train people to be able to equip people living with HIV in their different diversities to be able to get employment that is not just working at Walmart to keep under the disability radar, working as a peer because you're only recognized as a peer. Mark, if it wasn't for your advice, I would have never actually thought to go back and get my master's degree. And you know, I've sent a few people your way who are saying, really, the Department of Labor can actually support me to to do some education, people don't have the information that is there to help them build their capacity, to help them get an education, to help them get a better job. And we see a lot of peers stuck in peer jobs because that's all they're seen. You're seen as a peer, they only appreciate you as a peer, and they'll keep you as a peer and not give you professional employment. So I think, congratulations to us for getting employment as one of the indicators in the National HIV/AIDS strategy. We really have to transfer the knowledge, Mark, that you have gathered to help HRSA see how they can operationalize and fund helping people living with HIV get off of disability or SSI or whatever it is that they could, and see that they will not be penalized or punished for getting employment and getting a better quality of life, getting some housing, not having to go for a food bank, and having to take care of all the other issues that come up because now we're aging with HIV.
Martha, thank you so very much. Grace, are you waving your finger? Oh, you're on mute. But I have
First
to be
of all,
quick because I gotta
okay,
keep
I'm gonna
time
make
for
it real fast.
Sylvester.
I want to say this to Martha. Thank you so much. I just really wanted to say to people that even if you're living in California where they call it GA, is it general? It's GA. In New York City, it's HACA. It's PWAC in Florida. All of those programs have a module that we seem to ignore, and it's for clothing and work. Under clothing, it's school. I go to Columbia right now, and an adult, what do you call it? It's like a service program. All I'm just saying is that the programs that are already there have modules for education. If you don't ask for these things, you won't know about it. If you go to any of your HACA centers, any of the centers in which you do, a lot of workers probably will even lift their forehead like, oh, you want to go to school? Because they don't even use it often. They don't even know it's there. Okay, so I just really want to say that. Go on.
Grace, I really appreciate that, especially because I think too many workers will consider that the folks that they work with wouldn't even be interested or able to do something like school. And here you are, Grace. You're an example of someone who's going to Columbia, which not very many of us could do. It's so wonderful. So proud of you. I want to go to my good friend and colleague, Sylvester Askins Jr., who is someone who represents some of the most expertise at the intersection of HIV and employment and benefit and employment services. Sylvester, can I turn it over to you?
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, Mark. First, let me just say thank you to Grace and Martha for all the great information that you ladies shared. It was wonderful to hear what you ladies are doing. I just want to take just a few minutes to talk about several things. One of the things that as a Black man living with HIV for the last 32 years, sometimes it's really, really difficult for us to even wrap our heads around going back to work. I'm 67 years old. I changed careers at 57. But luckily, I had the advantage of knowing some of the resources and the information that was out there for me. So many times, people who look like Grace and Martha and myself don't have an effective means for getting the information and the resources that are out there for those of us living with HIV who want to go back to work. For me and from many people like me, going back to work is a lifeline. Right? It's the opportunity to get back involved, to feel better about yourself. So by having somewhere to get up and go every morning, it also inspires you to want to be better. So you take your medication, you get up, you take a shower, you brush your teeth, you get dressed, you feel better about yourself. And all these things affect your mental health. And when we feel better about ourselves, we're more inspired to want to do more with our lives. Another thing I want to share that many times people who look like us came into our diagnosis with limited skills. And while that might seem a little harsh, it's the reality that I've seen and dealt with working with people in the state of Virginia, especially Black men. Many of us came into our diagnosis not having a lot of marketable skills. Then many of us were out of work for 5, 10, 15 years. And so the world changed quite a bit. So now that we're talking about employment, many of us are afraid to take that leap because we feel inferior or ineffective in our ability to go back to work. But the good news is that there's hope for anyone living with HIV who wants to even consider going back to work. Another thing I want to share with you guys is just a few of the resources that are available for those of us living with HIV who would like to go back to work. So Mark and I talk a lot about 4, 5 different programs. That's Voc Rehab, the Ticket to Work program, the Work Incentive and Planning Assistance Program or benefits counseling, community colleges, and centers for independent living. So Voc Rehab is a federal program that's done by the states that gives anyone with a disability the opportunity and the resources and the information and the boost that they need in order to see if they're able to work. Anyone living with HIV who gets a disability check is presumptively eligible for Voc Rehab services, which means that you can go in and you can begin to get the services that are offered by Voc Rehab. Another program that is really, really wonderful is the Ticket to Work program. I assigned my ticket to the Independent Center in Norfolk, Virginia, which was an employment network. An employment network is simply an agency, either public or private, that has been vetted by the Social Security Administration that then allows them to work with Social Security disability recipients to help them make that leap back into work. It's wonderful in that you don't have to lose all of your benefits immediately. In most instances in the Ticket to Work program, there are time constraints that you can work and still get all or a portion of your cash benefit while you try and figure out if working is going to be with you. One thing I do want to share is that we understand that working is not for everybody. There are just some individuals, for whatever reason, don't have the ability to work, because many of us not only have HIV diagnosis, but we have some other mental health or other issues that might preclude us from being able to work. So we never want to say that everybody has to go back to work. What we do want to stress, though, anybody who wants to go back to work, there are resources out there for us that will give us the opportunity to be able to explore our employment goals. And then there is the Work Incentive and Planning Assistance program. It's called WIPA. It's also by the Social Security Administration. They are trained benefits counselors who talk to individuals who are thinking of returning to work, who can sit down with you and tell you exactly how going back to work will affect your cash benefits, your HOPWA, any other public benefit you might be on. And that's wonderful information to have. So you have the opportunity before you even do this to know whether it's going to be something that is going to work for you. If you already know the job that you're applying for and you know how much you're going to make each pay period, it's very easy for that trained benefits counselor to sit down, run the numbers, and tell you exactly how your SSI or your SSDI benefit is going to be affected by you going back to work. Another really great resource are the community colleges. For a long time, community colleges have not been used to the degree of which they're able to be used. Many times now, many certificate programs, associate degrees, training programs, these programs are being housed in community colleges because in most instances, even if you don't have a GED or a high school diploma, in most instances, you can earn that GED at the community college level and then go on into a specific training program. Also, there are what's called Centers for Independent Living. These are agencies that were set up for the disabled many, many years ago. but there are also wonderful resources for those of us living with HIV. I worked at the Independent Center, which is in Norfolk, Virginia, which is a center for independent living. And we were able to help not only individuals living with HIV, but individuals across the entire spectrum of disability. I was a bit discouraged because I saw that people living with HIV in my area were not taking advantage of the resources that were available at the center, which kind of inspired me to begin this work that I'm doing now. Another thing I want to talk about, especially for those of us who are long-term survivors of 20 years or more, and who are above the age of 50, 55. You know, when we were coming along, we were taught you go to school, you get a job, you work somewhere for 40 years and you retire. So many of us at the time of our diagnosis had many, many dreams for our lives, but that diagnosis stuffed out those dreams. We now have the opportunity through employment to go back and begin to dream again. My own experience is that, you know, I do have a 9-to-5, but I've also learned that if I'm going to work really, really hard, then I should be working for myself. Many of us weren't taught, and even though there are no conversations really about employment, there are even less conversations about self-employment. Many of us, especially us long-term survivors, have skills that we don't even realize or think that we have. Many of those skills can be used because we're subject matter experts. Nobody knows this information better than we do. And I would challenge individuals, especially the long-term survivors on the call, to go back and think about all that it's taken for you to navigate your life over the last 20 or 25 years, all that you've learned, and then put that together and see how you can make that work for yourself. So rather than having to go to a 9-to-5 every day, you're able to then start a business of your own that will give you the opportunity to move up in life. Employment is that thing that takes us out of poverty. I can't remember if it was Cameron or Grace that said, as long as we're drawing a disability check, we're always going to be in poverty. Those systems were not set up for people to thrive. They were set up as a stopgap measure for temporary assistance. However, in many instances, it has been used for a long-term thing, and that's not what it was set up to be. We have to begin to pull ourselves up out of poverty. We're no longer dying, we're thriving, and we have the opportunity to live and thrive like anybody else. And I would challenge individuals to think about the fact, you know what, now that I'm thriving, I want to begin to dream again. Some of us could have had a dream to start your own business, to be an entrepreneur, whatever it may have been, we now have that opportunity to do this. Unfortunately, getting back to employment services, many of the HIV service providers feel uncomfortable talking to us about employment. For many reasons, these are my own personal beliefs. Some of them think that we're not able to work. Some of them think that we don't want to work. Some of them just don't understand. And many of them understand that they don't have the information that they need in order to talk to us effectively, but that can't be an excuse, right? And we have to begin to demand that these agencies give us what we need, and we need informed, good, resourceful information about employment and how employment can bring us to a new place, both mentally, spiritually, and physically. And in the essence of time, I'm going to stop there and I'll turn it back to Mark.
Oh, goodness. Thank you so much, Sylvester. That was a lot of amazing information that you and Martha and Grace shared, in addition to a lot of inspiration for thought. And my hope is among many folks, movement to work together to advocate for the resources and the services and the access to information that we have rarely had throughout the course of the epidemic, including into these more recent years when treatment and care has improved, but the resources to allow us to live a full thriving life have not been there. I want to note the time. It's 4:35. I think we are to wrap up. And do we have time for any Q&A?
Oh, we do, Mark, and I look forward to that Q&A. First of all, I want to say thank you so much. Boy, you really brought the big guns in your panel. I want to thank all three of your panelists. Sylvester, I appreciate you challenging us to rethink our own worth as workers. And Martha, for all of the great resources that you presented and mentioned to us, and for some of the truth bombs that I heard during this presentation. I'm looking at you, Grace. I appreciate that so much. I appreciate your transparency and for calling it the way you see it. I hope that we do have, so I see that we have some discussion things here in the chat. If you have questions for any one of our panelists, you're more than welcome to throw them out now. Boy, I see one already from the great Butch McKay from Alabama. Heather, I'm going to go ahead and read this if that's okay. It says, how effective has your services been in rural communities? My community is considered rural as well as being a tourist destination, which creates, oh, I'm sorry, he's in, thank you, Fort Walton Beach, Florida, or is where actually his conference is held each year. My community is considered rural as well as being a tourist destination, which creates a whole host of different problems. The hospitality industry is one of our largest employers, but they will not hire people full-time, so they can't qualify for insurance. Many of my people have to turn down promotions because the increase puts them over the limit established for Ryan White services. And yet the hospitality industry still doesn't provide health care. Sorry, hold on. It doesn't provide health care. Do you have suggestions that could benefit people in this situation? Thank you. And boy, he mentions a situation so many of us get trapped in, and that is in that income strange hierarchy where you make too much for one thing, but not enough to live on.
Well, you know what? We have to be realistic as service providers, and also as people who've lived with this virus for as long as I have. I always say to people, you know, sometime, you know, when I was doing wrong 15 years ago and doing all of, you know, stealing everybody's money and all that other madness that I was doing, I put a lot of effort in that because it was something that I need. The need is still there, but I don't have to go do anything wrong. And the message with that is this, is that if I know that I cannot find a job that's going to pay my rent and all those amenities and bills that come with living independently, then I have to do what is necessarily due. That means that I have to work right up to the line of what the barrier of finances is. That's what people are doing. That's what I did. I came home and I made sure I had all the logistical things. But the reality of it all is that I needed HASA, I needed SSI just so I can have a roof over my head. As things went on, I was able, now hear me real carefully, because I'm the example of those people you're talking about. I slowly but surely, through a lot of prayer, a lot of having the right people in my ear, I slowly and surely had to serve myself off of HASA because now I'm making too much now. I started at $17 an hour, now I'm making $35 an hour. Do I need to say more? So the whole point I'm saying is that those of you who are listening and you are recognizing that you are marginalized, no one on this call is telling you to do anything illegal, but we know that empowering yourselves by slowly weeding yourself out, you won't feel the fear that comes with where am I going to live? How am I going to pay my rent? Believe me, when you put something in the atmosphere that is positive, it will come back to you.
Grace, thank you so much. If I could, Mark, I want to add some additional thoughts in response to Butch's comments and questions, which are so powerfully important. First of all, the National Working Positive Coalition itself is not a service provider. We are, the work that we do is training, technical assistance, research and advocacy. And the advocacy piece has been growing over the years because of the need to change our systems so that the services at local and state levels are developed in response to these needs that people have. And one thing that I want to focus on, especially related to the Panhandle, the area of Florida where Butch lives and has served so heroically for so many years. There are services that exist in that area to address employment needs. We were grateful to have the opportunity to come to the Positive Living Conference this last time in September, and Sylvester joined me, and I and Vanessa Johnson and April Watkins from GMHC collaborated to present a full day employment institute for people living with HIV, for people who were attending Positive Living from all over the country, certainly all over the region, all over the state, but also for people from the area. And a part of what we were able to do during that day was to engage leadership representatives of many of the most important employment service systems that provide services directly in Fort Walton Beach and in the surrounding region. And every single one of them were being asked to attend for the first time an event that was focused on what they can contribute to their community's response to the needs of people living with HIV. And we had a pretty exciting discussion among them. They were very clearly powerfully moved and became emotional about the opportunity to learn and become involved more in responding to the needs of a community that they'd had a pretty limited contact with over the years. And so, Butch, I'd be very happy to work with you very specifically there, because there are resources that can provide services across the region, including in rural areas, that I think can be amplified and maximized. And we developed contacts with folks in that area who were interested in being involved. And we're hoping that those kinds of meetings and those kinds of discussions could be ongoing. And this is something important to note. For every part of the country, there are resources that are available to people in rural areas. And something that needs to be understood about employment services in general is that they level the playing field for people who have barriers to employment, but also they work with individuals to maximize the quality of the employment that they may get. And so I don't want folks to feel like their only option in their community is these jobs that don't have health insurance, that won't pay a full-time wage if that's what they want. So I really feel like our mission is to ensure that all people living with HIV, all long-term HIV survivors, can get connected to services and resources that can maximize the quality and range of options and opportunities they could consider and pursue and obtain. And with that, I think we've gone over our time.
You know, that's just great. Mark, first of all, again, thank you so much. Thank you, Sylvester. Thank you, Martha. Thank you, Grace, for that terrific panel conversation. I love the fact that you're willing to look at a variety of solutions for anyone who is considering going back to work, including not going back to work, that we do what is best for us, what's the best for our financial security, including benefits, and we take it from there. There are so many people to thank for this second Reunion Project National Town Hall. Before you go anywhere, attendees, I want to point out to you the evaluation one more time that Jeff or Heather is about to post once more in the chat room. Just click on that so that you have it in your browser to answer when you can. Also, you know, it's the end of the year coming up, and the Reunion Project is proud to sponsor free events like this one. But if you're looking to make an end of the year donation to a charity, they'll take that too. please go to reunionproject.net to either find out about the Reunion Project's work and what upcoming events might happen, or if you're going to make a little end of the year donation, that they would appreciate that too. I want to thank Nelson Virgil for his terrific presentation earlier today. I'd like Heather to throw up a slide showing all the ways that you can get in touch with the Reunion Project on various social media platforms. And remind you that this was being recorded. And so we will make this recording available to y'all. You just watch the Reunion Project site to find out how to do that. With that, I want to thank all of you who took the time to attend, especially during this busy holiday season. I have one big wish for you, and that is that you have a happy and safe, and most of all, healthy holiday season ahead. And on behalf of the Reunion Project, thank you so much for attending. And y'all have a nice evening. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.